Okay, so the fan on our AC unit in our RV is very loud, and we're going to do a tutorial here on how to replace the motor on that. I'll show you how loud it is here in a second. So listen to this. You can see it's quite loud. Kind of uncomfortable in here when you're just sitting trying to be on vacation or whatever. So we're going to go up on the roof and we are going to see what we can do to fix this. We'll take it apart and see if we can fix this problem. Alright, here we are on top of the RV. This is our air conditioning here. We got these 4 bolts here on top. That is Phillips head, number 3 Phillips. We'll have to take those out. And then this is like a clamshell. I got these little clips in here. And it comes apart. Okay, now that we have those 4 screws out of there, we have this joint here where the 2 pieces come together. They got these little clips right in here. I don't know if you can see that or not. But we have to pull this apart and try to release these little clips down here. You can just do that with a screwdriver. So this is what it looks like on the inside of this, under the covers on this thing. All right, let's turn this thing on and hear how loud it is. The bearings in this motor are dried out, and that's what's making all the noise. So eventually it's going to fail. Okay, so first thing we gotta do is cut the power off so you don't get electrocuted, you know. So we got the power off to this, and we're gonna take these fan blades off, and they will go inside of this housing, and they'll move over out of the way. Looks like we're gonna need to get an Allen wrench for this to remove this fan. Okay, so we found ourselves an Allen wrench. We're going to loosen this clamp off. Now when we push this off the end of the shaft, it might be a little sticky, and you do not want to hit those cooling fins in there. They're quite fragile and easy to damage, so be careful with this, and maybe wiggle it a little or something, a little extra more wiggling, a little less brute force maybe, and it's just going to move back here out of the way for now. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove these screws on this little foot bracket, and then we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws to remove to let this motor come out of this housing. So that's just a number 2 Phillips. Pretty simple to disassemble here. Now we got to be careful. Take this last screw out here. We don't want this to fall forward and run the end of this shaft here into these cooling fins and damage those. Again, they're quite delicate and can easily be punctured. So I'm holding pressure up on that motor while I take that last screw out. So now this should just slide over. Again, be very careful of that end of that shaft and mindful of where it's going. Pull the end of this in here, and it'll allow this squirrel cage to just pass and tip upward. Okay, so before you remove this squirrel cage, you want to get a measurement here for a reference, and I got about 1 inch there, so you know where to put this squirrel cage back on the new motor. Okay, so if you look on the edge of this, there should be a fin, an access fin that they cut out, and you can reach down in here and get to this Allen head here, here on this clamp, and you loosen that off, and that'll allow you to remove this squirrel cage fan. Okay, so before you take this out, you can get to these numbers and order your new motor, but they'll have the serial number on here, and well, you'll be able to get the model number and part number off of this tag on here, hopefully. I don't know how I can on mine. But one of the options they have is the length of these shafts. This one here is about 7.5 inches on that end, and then about 3.5 inches on this end. So that's something that you might want to get when you order your new motor. So we're going to order our new motor and then we'll put it back in. Okay, so we're going to open up the access panel for the wiring on this. It's just again a couple of Phillips head number 2 Phillips screws that hold this panel on, and that will allow you, again, make sure the power is shut off to this. You do not want to get electrocuted. It is no fun and it could kill you. You do not want to play with that. So mine does have a wiring diagram up here. That's kind of nice. Okay, so this does have capacitors, as you can see in here. These are very dangerous. They hold a charge and they will electrocute you even if the power is shut off to this unit. So be very careful with these. But we'll track down these wires, and how to wire this back in is basically 1 for 1. The new motor will have the same wires. You bring them in and put them in the same spot. Now, it might be advisable to go ahead and change out your capacitors while you're in here, because they do go bad. So I'll leave that up to you if you want to replace them at that time or not. Alright, so here we are. We got our new motor. We went ahead and bought the new capacitors. This has been sitting a while with no power on it. So, and most of the time these capacitors have a resistor in them that will drain the charge out of them, so they're safer to handle. But I got my little electric volt tester here, and I'm going to put the tester on them to see if the charge is gone or not. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll put one on there, and you can see we have no voltage. Alright, so that one's dead, drained, and then this one, same thing, no voltage. Alright, so these are safe to handle now, so we can go ahead and take those out. Alright, so we got our new motor. We're going to go ahead and check that, make sure it's the proper one. I found it on Amazon. I think it was only like $140 maybe, $130, something like that. Pull that out here. So this is our new motor. It does look a little different than the other one. It's supposed to be an OEM direct replacement for this motor, or for this unit. This one definitely looks a little bit heftier. That might just be age. The shaft lengths are identical. And this one's a little bit shorter, but that shouldn't be no problem. It's only a 1/4 inch shorter on that side, I guess. And we got the 3, 4, 5 wires here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wires here. It looks like they're all color coded too. We got brown with a white stripe, brown with a white stripe, black, red, and white. So yeah, it's nice that they're color coded. We should be able to put this right in as long as it bolts up here. Okay, so we got these 4 bolts that hold this motor on. They're stuck underneath this foam sound dampening. I'm just pushing a bolt head through, and that'll give us access to the nut in there behind the foam. So we'll just have to get a wrench or a ratchet maybe and buzz those off of there. Alright, so we got our wrench or our socket and our 1/4 inch ratchet, and we just break these loose. Turn it around, and we're going to take this back little foot off here. Same thing, we just got 1 bolt holds that on. Loosen it off. Motor is disconnected. Now we just want to work on the wiring. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start taking the wires apart here. And I got the zip tie on here. I'm just going to cut that. We can get to that later, replace it. All right, so we got the wires for the compressor going in there and the wires for the motor going in there. So we just gotta figure out which wire is which here. And this one here is the black wire to the motor. So we can go ahead and cut that. It has these crimp connectors on here. So we'll just cut that and replace it with another crimp connector. And again, the power is shut off. So the black wire should be disconnected here. And if you're worried about it, you can just send this black wire right back down in there and reattach it right now. All right, before we get started, I'm going to put a piece of heat shrink on this. You can see here, it goes in this motor. It doesn't really have anything other than this little brass, and it's probably not necessary, but I'm going to put this in there and hopefully prevent any you know, rubbing when it's vibrating or anything to cause any problems. So we'll put that right up in there. It'd been nice if the factory would have done this. And that'll just be an extra layer of protection. Now it's just heat shrink, so we'll get our little lighter out here. There, just a little extra protection there in case it vibrates and rubs. Alright, so we already cut this black wire here just a minute ago. We'll go ahead and strip that off. So I have these little butt connectors. They're heat shrink ones to help keep the any weather out or anything. So you just put these on here, twist that wire together. These are the blue ones, so you crimp it with the blue. Make sure it's in there good and snug, and we'll make sure that our new wire feeds through. And hooks in same way. Nice and snug. Now, these are the heat shrink ones, so you should be able to heat these up. The weather works with me here. There, see, it seals right up around that wire. And then we'll on to the next wire. Now, these two brown ones go to the capacitor in here. Pull this capacitor out. Again, we check these to make sure there's no power on this. This capacitor here that we bought, a replacement for it, it is physically smaller, but it has the exact same specs. And it says it is a replacement for this unit. So, it's supposed to be identical. So what we're going to do is we got a brown wire with a white stripe and a plain brown wire. So we need our new motor And it's already got the ends crimped on there for us. That's very nice. We got the brown with a white stripe and an all brown. We will run them through and pick them up over here and plug them in the identical way as the old one. And I already messed it up. So we gotta take that back off because it says brown with white stripe goes on this side, the right side, on this unit. I don't know if your unit's identical or not. And then brown goes on the left side. So there it is. And that can tuck back in there where the old one came from. And then this one can get removed. So we got our 2 brown wires done, so now all we got left is this red wire, which is one more cut and crimp wire. There you go. The old motor is separated. New motor is wired in identical to the old one. Should have no troubles. Now this gooey stuff we got here is just a seal. It's called duck putty. Comes like this. Or I guess they call it duck seal. I always called it duck putty. You can get it at Lowe's or Menards or Home Depot. But yeah, it's just this gray goo. And we will take this off of here and replace it. It's just a seal. Keeps water out, moisture out. This stuff is just a blob of goo. You can form it however you want it. And we'll just set this on here for now, and then we will adjust it in a little bit once I get the motor in place and everything. So that will seal up there. Okay, so I wanted to change out this capacitor while I was in here. This is the capacitor for the compressor. And here again, this one is a different size, but again, same exact specs. Says it is an exact replacement. And put the wires right back on the same way they came off. Set it back in there. And it is good to go again. And we'll tighten that up.
Yeah.
Alright, so we're ready to reinstall this plate onto the motor. This plate goes in here like this. It has this third screw hole up here on the top. So this is up on this plate. Now, this motor, this side is up. It's got these vent holes on the bottom, so if any rain hits it or something, it doesn't go inside the motor. So we want to put that on. Up is up. Just like that. And then put these little bolts or these little nuts back on. Okay. Now on the back here, we have this little foot plate that we took off, and we can see that this is the hole they used last time. So put that on there. And we won't tighten this one up yet because it might have to move around up and down. It's a little bit adjustable. So we can go up and down with that. Alright, so here's the squirrel cage. Now I had a heck of a time getting this off of here because the end of the shaft is rusty. So what I ended up having to do is taking some sandpaper and shining the end of the shaft and get rid of some of this rust. Then I was able to pull this right off the end without too much trouble. Okay, so now we need to reinstall our squirrel cage onto here.
Go.
Alright, so we're going to reinstall this squirrel cage on this motor. So I'm going to pull this up here. Now this is I believe they call it a D shaft. It's got a flat edge on a round shaft. And this has a flat spot on a round shaft. So line up the two flat spots. Slide it on. There we go. Now, earlier in the video I measured here as a reference, and we had about an inch. So now we know where to put this one on this new shaft, and we'll put it right at about an inch. Maybe just a little bit more. Let's try it now. 1 inch off that foam pad. So now it should be exactly where it needs to be. Again, we got the little cutout access fin. We're going to reach inside there and tighten this Allen head bolt down until it's nice and snug. Alright, and that is not coming off of there. So now we are ready to reinstall this down in here. Alright, so we're going to reinstall this now. Get ourselves a little extra wire here. Now, if you remember right, this goes down in like this, and then it should just rotate right down into where it needs to go. And slide in. There we go. Again, be careful the end of that shaft doesn't hit those cooling fins. They damage really easily. And then we just reverse the process here. Put these screws back in. Now that that's in place, we can go ahead and tighten this little bolt up. Nice and tight. Motor is solid. So now, if you remember, we tucked this fan blade back behind here. We're just going to pull it out. Again, it's a D shaft. Put the flat spot on the flat spot, and it slides on. Now this fan blade should be about halfway in there on that fan blade itself. See, so it should be right about like that. Maybe right there. That's where that should be. And then just tighten up this Allen clamp right here. And it's tight. It's not hitting anything. We are ready to fire it up and give it a test run. Move this stuff out of the way and go down and turn the power on. Alright, the power is reconnected, and we're going to go ahead and turn it on and see the difference. You can see the difference in the noise. Definitely took care of that problem. We're going to replace this zip tie we cut off of here. We'll tuck these wires in, make everything nice and neat. Put a zip tie on it to hold them all together and keep everything in a nice bundle. Just like that. We'll cut the end of this. Cut that off. And now the Duck Buddy, you just squish it all around them wires, push it in real good, and it will make a seal. It'll keep the critters out, keep any water out. It's just pretty good stuff. They call it duck seal. Works great for plugging holes like that. So we're gonna go ahead and put the cover back on, which is pretty simple. We got the two halves of the clamshell. We just slide on, and screw holes are lined up. Again with this one, it slides on. Now if you look right here in the middle, you see these little clips they go into this groove and hook on. So once you get it lined up like it's supposed to be, it'll start going together. Now in order to get those apart, you just take your screwdriver, take a flat screwdriver, and you just pop it in there and it will pull it right apart. We're putting it back together here, so alright, all the clips are together. Now we just have these 4 bolts that go in the top. Alright, so there you have it. One replaced motor and an RV air conditioner, reinstalled, running quiet and cold. Alright, so here we are in the RV with the fan running on high, and you can hear the difference. We'll bring the camera right over here to the discharge on this, and you'll be able to hear how quiet it is compared to what it was. There you have it. You can hear how big of a difference that is. You just got air noise now. There's no other background noise. It's not screaming like it was before. So it'll be a lot more comfortable in here sitting when you're on vacation, you know, at night trying to sleep or whatever you're trying to do without that thing screaming. Okay, here's the idea of the tools that we used to do this project. I used the electrical tester just to make sure the capacitors didn't have a charge and power was indeed turned off. The duct seal you can get at any hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards. To seal up the place where the wires went through, we use these butt connectors. These are the heat shrink ones to reconnect the wires. I used the blue ones. This is the yellow one. That's all I had. Phillips screwdriver, number 2 Phillips, number 3 Phillips. Wire strippers and crimpers to crimp the butt connectors and to strip the wires back. The wire cutters we used just to cut the zip tie that was holding the wires together. The Allen wrench, that was a 5/32 Allen wrench on the fan blades, on those clamps that we needed. The ratchet with a number 9mm 1/4 inch ratchet for the to take the motor off of the mounts, and a measuring tape to get a reference to where the squirrel cage goes.